Heyo everyone, welcome back to Theonopolis. So today we are somewhat finishing up the Odeon, somewhat being a bit of a keyword whenever I finish something. But I also want to talk about the mistake that I made while building the Odeon. But before that, I quickly want to thank you guys for 100 subscribers. I never in my life thought I would get here, or that I was A, entertaining enough, or B, a good enough builder to actually earn that. But I want to just make a promise that I will keep on trying to improve my videos, my buildings and everything, just to, just keep on improving. So again, thank you for the somewhat, I think, like the trust you placed in me for, well, basically building Theonopolis mostly, probably. Anyway. So back into what we are building today. Again, quickly, thank you guys, but I could be thanking you guys for like the whole video. I don't think we will get very far with that. I'm probably going to thank you at least 2 more times, probably. Anyway, for the Odeon, as you could see already, I have raised basically the edges to make it a proper Grecian Odeon, because as I think I said this in the first episode of building the Odeon, they were mostly built into a hillside, so that's why I wanted to, well, honor that. And actually I already have the idea of what I will do with the uppermost part, because I have built a road on there because I want to do something with it, because the Odeon is actually quite on like a central location in Theonopolis, so there is going to be stuff behind it, and so that's why the roads on top of it, or the pathing on top of the Odeon, makes sense, so that you have a place where you can look into the Odeon, but you can also see everything that's behind the Odeon. And also I wanted to, because there's pathing on top of the Odeon right now, I wanted to make a fence, because I assume that there might be some fee connected to, watching a show or a play in the Odeon. And I didn't want to just make it a free-for-all. And in a way, the fences actually help with how the Odeon was built, because the Odeon was built with really well thought of when it comes to acoustics and sound, because, well, this also drives into the mistake I built, or the mistake I assumed when building the Odeon, because the play would actually go into the middle circle. I originally thought that the play would go on what looks right now as the stage, or at least the building. And as I already stated, the play was actually historically going to be in what I would assumed was just the box for the orchestra or the music. But from what I see, those two things, or those two functions, whoa, if I misspeak, it's really hot today, so I'm slightly more mumbly than more normal. But anyway, so the orchestra box, or at least the thing that for me looks like an orchestra box, was also the place where the play would go on, which, because when you think of acoustics and sounds, makes a bit more sense than the stage, or what we nowadays see as the stage. More because from the stage, when it comes to acoustics and sounds, it's actually a worship place to make that. And in the central area, you could hear the actors from completely at the back end of the Odeon and at the front. But for the fences, as I said, it actually helps with the acoustics, because the sound actually bounces off the fence. Like, I've made sure that there's some kind of, like, I wouldn't call it artwork, but some kind of relief on the fence, so that it's not a flat surface, so that the sound actually really bounces off the fence and it's not in a way hollow sounding. But also, when I thought of the fence, it's, first of all, for me it's a bit annoying to, well, it's not annoying for me to build, but it's a bit more difficult to build a round building or a round thing that needs to be, you know, almost completely symmetrical and almost, you know, it needs to look, in my eyes, perfect. But yeah, the bigger the circle gets, the more annoying and more really, you know, finicky it gets to get everything perfect, which we're already past that point. But anyway, with the fences it was really annoying to really connect the dots. But I also wanted to make entrances from the top of the Odeon, which in a way would probably not be very historically accurate, but then I thought about like a little bit of modern or just safety issues, because yeah, if something happens, there would only be like the two, basically the two entrances at the bottom, and then, well, if there is anything happening, people would get trampled. So I wanted to make a few more entrances or exits at the top, probably exits more, because I think that for you guys or for the guest to see a show in the Odeon, you would have to pay. And I don't think these doors would have like a booth or something so that you could pay there. But also I made sure that the fences were like high enough that if you are on the outside looking in, you can still look or see a little bit, but of course the sound would be worse and you would have to really stand on your toes. But yeah, so for me the stage part is somewhat done with that. I might, you know, include some lighting, because lighting is the last thing I always do, because you can do lighting first, but then you're like, or at least in my mind it's always like you need to really have the building done to actually, you know, do a good job at the lighting, in my opinion, because then you could see where it's like where the lighting is hitting the building and everything. So yeah, but now we're moving on to a fun part, or actually we are already there. Again, it's really hot in here, or at least today it's really hot. So I am, again, more rambly than usual, because my brain is just on surviving this heat. Yeah. But with the, I don't know if you can call this the front of the Odeon, because for me the front of the Odeon is, you know, where people are seated, where people are looking into, well, the play. So this would probably be, well, also not the back, so I'm going to call it the facade. But it's basically just, you know, well, it's the facade. I already told you guys. But for this, I really had no clue on how to build this, because I have watched videos, I've looked for a ton of references, but every time I found something that showed like a reconstructed Odeon, it would always be from like viewing from the stand. So this part of the building you wouldn't see, or I couldn't see at least. So this is really just my imagination going wild. This is really just trying to make the Odeon fit into its position in Odeon. Whoa, in Theonopolis. So it's really just a lot of like, does this work? No? Alright, try a different approach. Does this work? You know, pan a little bit back. Doesn't work? Alright, try a different thing. In the end, I went with something a bit close to a stoa, or just, you know, an extension. And I think, Alia, if you're watching this, you might have once told me what this extension of the roof, what the name was, but I'm just going to use the excuse of the heat again, because I forgot the word for it. But yeah, it's basically just well, extra roofing. Again, I want to use the excuse of the heat. But I thought of like, oh, you know, maybe raise the middle bit so that it's still a bit more, well, it's not completely just bland roofing. And, well, in the end, it changed, but it's still a lot of pillars in the end. I mean, most Grecian buildings are a lot of pillars. Also a lot of marble. And here I'm trying to make a frieze, which in the end, it has somewhat of some elements that I'm building right now, but especially the two bigger, well, they are now white and are supposed to represent marble. I eventually scratched those because looking at it now, it really looks like teeth. I don't know why, but it really looks like teeth to me. And I didn't want that. I did want a slightly more demure frieze of, well, for this part of the building, because this is not the focus of the building. Like, your eyes should actually go to the entrance, which is are at the side. So yeah, in the end I still made it a little bit more popping, as I would call it, but beyond that, it's a little bit more of a demure frieze. And for once I actually remembered that word, and I think it's like a running thing right now. Like, if I remember one word, I will forget the next one. Like, now I forgot what this extension of the roof, the word is for, but I remember that, well, I remember that what I'm building right now is a frieze, and what's at the top of, well, not on top of the roof, but at the pointing of the roof, that's got a pediment. I'm not building that right now, so don't worry about that. It's not like, what is he talking about? Well, it is a bit like that, but again, so it's always like that right now. I remember one word, I forget the next one. I'm really visually minded, actually. Which actually helps where Plant Coaster. Like, I forget half of the names of every piece that I'm building. Well, actually, I don't remember any of the names of the pieces that I use. But right now, you can see it's a little bit more of a demure frieze. But when I copied it completely to actually make it a frieze, it was a bit too demure for me. Like, it was a bit too held back. And yeah, in the end, I just changed one piece, changed the color of that one piece in the entire frieze, and that actually helped a lot. So you can already see it, just one piece. The color is just a little, well, it's the same kind of orange that is on the other friezes, and it's just a little bit more popping. And I removed the fence because, yeah, it just didn't feel right. And then it was on to, well, basically the middle part, which I was unsure about for the longest time. I think first it was supposed to be a bit more temple-esque with the, well, the pointed roof, well, pointing towards the Acropolis, or, you know, pointing towards the, well, front of the facade, or facade. It's a word. Anyway, but in the end I went for somewhat of a balcony from which maybe like the show or the play would be announced, like, it's starting right now, or something along those lines. But it's still, you know, it's still somewhat of like an impressive facade, or somewhat of like eye-catching, because actually from the Acropolis, this is what you see. If you go to the Odeon, this is what you see. So it needs to be eye-catching to draw you in, and to make probably it would be a little bit more simple and like realistic, or to be historically accurate, this would probably be a little bit more, you know, functional. Like it would probably be somewhat akin to a stoa or how it would be used. But for Theonopolis, again, I needed to make some changes, or I wanted to make some changes, and by that, like, this is a completely non-functional side of the building for it right now. And well, basically the building is a bit wrong, because as I said before, what was built as a stage was not supposed to be a stage, because the stage was the orchestra box, and the scene would probably, well, would just be panels in between the pillars. But we're going to leave that for, well, not for now. I'm going to leave that because I like the way the building is looking right now. Even though it's not completely historically accurate, Theonopolis is not going to be 100% historically accurate. And I like that. It has a bit of its own flair. And also, the Odeon is actually quite small compared to real life buildings, or real life Odeons. Or at least when compared to like the almost monumental Odeons. This Odeon is quite small, because I think it has like 15 rows when it comes to the stands, and then most, or at least the Odeons that I saw, have like 30 or 32. Yeah. But onto the square in front of the Odeon, which basically was built because I wanted a place where, if you were going to watch a play in the Odeon or a show, this would be the place where you're saying like, yeah, meet me at the stage or the front of the Odeon, or meet me there. Like, this would be the meeting point for watching a show. And I wanted to make it a little bit more impressive than just a flat, boring square. So that's why I went with pillars, and again later on statues on the pillars, so that they have a little bit of a function. So right now, well, the statues on the pillars are, well, they are naked women, or almost naked women, but I imagine that they would be like the statues of the muses, like, because it's a play, or, well, because it's an Odeon, so there's theater. Making statues of the muses in front of the theater or the Odeon would make sense. And then imagining that if all of these statues had like a person associated with it, then the statues on the edges of the Odeon, the male statues, I think the only male statues actually, would probably be like either Dionysus, like the gods of wine, and I think he was associated with theater, but then also it could be maybe Apollo, the god of music. And in the Odeon right now, the attraction or the ride is the Odeon ring. I am forever unsure about putting a ride in the Odeon, but I really just thought there has to be a ride here. But I think that's going to be it for today. I hope you like the video. If you do, I hope to see you back in the next one, and I hope you have an amazing day. Again, thank you for the 100 subscribers. I did it again. I did thank you again. But see you in the next video. Bye bye.